This is Abe Friedtanzer from Awards Buzz, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Joe Tierney and Kat Whalen about Fuck Ups Anonymous, which I think we're allowed to pronounce the
Yes.
asterisk. How are you both doing today?
So great talking to you, Abe. I'm great. How are you?
Good, good. Um, I watched this pilot. It was very engaging. I would say very disturbing. Also, maybe a tiny bit entertaining. And I'm not sure, I want to understand, since I know, Joe, this is based on your own experiences. Do you think that's a fair assessment? Do you want people to enjoy this show?
What's incredible is I think you, me, and Kat are the only ones that can see. We've been saying the entertain because there is elements of comedic. I do want people to enjoy it, and I do want them to see the dark humor in growing up and being a teenager again, which I hope. And it's such a horrifying, true story that the only way to make light of it is to add these elements of entertain and you kind of just shake your head and say, "Oh my God," and you catch yourself smiling and yeah, things along those lines. Yeah.
What
Yeah, I
do
think
you
it was
think,
really
Kat?
interesting when Joe first pitched the project to me. We really connected that not only is this a very horrifying and troubling and dark story, but the humans that are at the middle of it, which are it's so important to really create those full rounded humans. Um, the only way to get through something like this is to find the gallows humor, the comedy, just the little glimmers. Obviously, not overall considering
Yeah.
the horrors that's going on, but we really bonded in our initial conversations about, those fully rounded characters that are imperfect and the strange bits of kind of offshoots of humor that are just inevitable when things are that messed up.
Hmm.
I definitely get some echoes of, Boy Erased, but then I think about like the Will and Grace parody of it, Camp Straight and Arrow or whatever, where it's very clearly not actually what's happening there. And I guess there's something about the idea of this sort of generic fuck up term that it's not necessarily an addiction or something that people think is, morally wrong. It's just they're not fitting into society the way they should. They're supposed to be corrected.
Correct. That's completely right, and it's expanding on just you're just a bad kid. You know what I mean? And then that as you grow into adulthood and carry that identity as just I don't know anymore. I'm just bad, and then that's where the title came from of just like yeah, I'm just a fuck up kind of. That's just me, and it took many years to shed that identity personally. And even when I had worked through, the drugs and alcohol, which I also identified with, and when I stopped using all that personally, I still just kept saying, well, I'm still just this fuck up, this bad guy, So that's exactly where, it sort of stems from.
Where do you film a show like this? What kind of setting do you need to use that could be the right place for this?
So it was a bit challenging, and we knew that. Well, I live in Jersey, so it's I wanted to find something around here because I wanted to do the flashback scenes and the escorts where it actually happened, which was at my house. So we wanted to keep it and not have everyone. Most of I had worked with a lot of the crew for many years, Kat included, so we knew it had to be local to New York, New Jersey, and knew it'd be a very difficult space to find because so much of it takes place in this one spot and wanted it to resonate as what it was. So we looked at a couple elks. I mean, we were looking all over the place, and then just the universe just popped up this campground that was off season because it was the winter. And I mean, we must have went there 5 times just to scout it and really talk through the script and sort of have these little mini rehearsals with just ourselves of like, could this work with so much action? Because I mean, every character is so important. The background are as important as I mean, everyone in there makes it. So we knew it needs to be a big enough space. And this place was just perfect. And they were so eager to kind of get the work, I think, also for themselves. So they were so more than happy to have us. Um, just come in and come in whenever we'd like, really, and then just scout out the place. And then that was great for me being a loud, proud Jersey boy too. So to keep it in the state, yeah.
And I actually came on after they had found the location. And when I read the script initially, I was like, okay, we've got what, 14, 15 pages that are basically one long scene. We
Mhm.
have all these character dynamics to set up, but we need to do it in a way that visually sustains the full short, so it doesn't start to feel too repetitive. And I think walking into this this lodge lunchroom area that they had found just immediately put me at ease, walking in there with our DP Andrew Trost, and really getting into how to visually set up these different sort of movements within the larger project. But it just that beautiful rich wood and just everything about that setting was just perfect for what we needed. So I was so thankful that the universe presented it to Joe when it did.
Yeah.
Well, looking through your credits on IMDb, it's some pretty impressive projects that you've worked on before. I'm curious if you've taken inspiration from anything for your approach for this.
I would, me personally, yeah. So we all met on Succession, a lot of us, which became, I would say the inspiration it gave me was I worked on it. I was 24 when I started working on it and shot this at 30 years old. In a way, that show raised me and how close I got with everyone from the cast to the crew. So it was, yes, I mean, it was so inspiring because we took so many of the crew members that I had already known, like I can be myself completely. This is something, and Katrina didn't even know this story, but we had already developed such a friendship that I never felt the need to tell her the story because we had our own friendship based on it. So to know already that there's going to be no judgment, you can be completely emotional. Can, I mean, I trusted her already before starting it. So that with so many people, so many of the crew allowed it to just, allowed me to be allowed me to be vulnerable, which was the only way to do this. I mean, not hide anything and just say, I think when I saw her to talk about the project, I probably said like, so what I'm going to say next, you're probably not going to believe because you've known me as this hardworking, young, which I think so much of the cast and crew of Succession viewed me as. And I mean, I was there for 3 seasons and it really was, I was a production assistant, so I was, learning from the best, and everyone took me under their wing. So to take so much, a couple of the crew members, and just completely be vulnerable, I mean, that was key and pivotal. And so, and yeah, just to get the courage and, to observe the writers of Succession and, just have great conversations with them. I guess it said like, yeah, you can write, they told me you could be a writer also. And it was like, I can, all right, I guess I can. And yeah. So, and I don't know about for you, Kat.
Yeah, I think I mean definitely have been working in the industry longer than Joe. Just by the nature of being a bit older and moving kind of from all sorts of projects, whether they were like the first project I was on was editorial on Eternal Sunshine, and then working with Charlie Kaufman on Synecdoche and some of his later projects. But really landing at Succession while I was there, I was able to shadow and kind of get in there for the conversations between the directors and the writers as they were shaping the show. And I think something about understanding both how to work with kind of more of an ensemble or multiple actors to build a scene and really figure out the blocking that I think the insight that I gained while shadowing and while just working on the show for the 4 seasons really helped me hone in on how best to approach Joe's script, especially when it comes to the tone, with the kind of dark, kind of biting comedy underneath it, but the overarching drama and then working with the actors. It was really such a lucky thing for me to have seen that in play and kind of be doing my homework while watching while shadowing and then to have this moment to really put that into practice and see it come together so beautifully because our actors were so on it and so excited and so passionate about helping Joe tell the story that they really dug into their characters in a way that when we showed up on for the table read and then for on day one to kind of do our initial blocking rehearsal, they hit the ground running and just it was just a joy because it was a lot more collaborative experience than I was. I kind of showed up with all my notes, but then it was great to kind of be to grab hands and start running through it. So it was really, I was very thankful, not only obviously to know Joe and the rest of a number of our crew members, but to have that experience lead into this shoot was really wonderful.
I think the Succession history also this feels like a kind of place that Kendall or probably more likely Roman, could have been sent if they wanted to make sure, but maybe not. Maybe it's a little too dingy, not quite as
I think
fancy for
I think
that.
a Roman Roy could get sent there. Yeah,
Yeah.
There you go.
when he's not getting locked up in the dog kennel
Yeah,
reference
yeah,
somewhere in season
yeah.
two.
So, Joe, what do you have written or mapped out, beyond this pilot for this show?
So that was, the moment we finished filming, I knew, okay, now the real work begins in telling the bigger story. And uh, it was a long couple months as I tried to write it as a film, and then we realized that in order to tell this, it needs to be in a mini series format to get not only my story but the other students' stories who play such a pivotal role. And so much of this story has to be about the failure to reintegrate back to society. So I have the bigger pilot with in addition to this to and we have the whole arc out for what hopes to be a 10 episode mini series type to really it's tough because it's a lot to chew, but there's and the story's still unfolding, I mean, things are still happening that are being published in the news about this school in particular and schools like this. So it still unfolds, and I guess that leaves room to really have discussion what is the best. But we decided that a mini series was the smartest approach. So I've, in addition, written a longer pilot that really explains the first day and really introduces how the school operates and the rules. And I still think leaves at a mystery of like why are these kids here, and are these kids, how helpful is it? But I'm really excited for the opportunity to expand on the other students that play a huge part in it too, because I think, kind of all joking aside, but what would a Roman Roy, what is the reason he's getting sent there? Is it because of Logan Roy? Is it because, and so to really explore what were the reasons we made the decisions we made, but also repairing relationships with family, you know what I mean? Investigating what the staff's motives were. I mean, there's so much to tell, and it's a difficult story because there's so much of it is so much takes place on the outside back in the real world in addition to the school. So we knew a mini series was the only way to really explore that. So we have a great pitch deck and a great pilot ready to gear up and bring towards to South by Southwest.
I was going to say I was at South by Southwest last year, and one of the best films I saw is called We Were Dangerous. Have you heard of this film?
I have not. No.
It is not a similar story, but the same kind of idea of a school for wayward young girls in New Zealand, decades ago. Very, very well done. Because I often think of South by Southwest as something that, like, when Steven Spielberg brought Ready Player One and said this is a movie, it's not a film. But I
Yeah.
think South by is becoming a more expansive environment. And I'm curious how you're both feeling about launching there.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it's such a knowing kind of the way that South by has really prided itself in expanding not only from music to then film and now building out the TV side of things. I think we were both really inspired by the talk that Mark Duplass gave last year about independent television and how to find a way forward since it feels so unfeasible, but it shouldn't. It should be blossoming the way that the independent film scene has. It just feels like such a natural place to bring this out into the world, and their staff, Francis is and Neve and everybody else that we've been working with are so excited and so supportive, and it helps us. I mean, obviously we believe in the project so much between our cast and our crew and everybody who's showing up for the premiere, which is really exciting. But then to have this additional machine of the festival being so excited about bringing it out into the world really just it's even more air in your sails, wind in your sails to get it out there. So I'm so thrilled. And this will be I had a project play at South by during the pandemic, so that was kind of bittersweet because it was all online. So I'm thrilled to be able to be in Austin and be in person and be ready to jump into the fray that we've been advised about. So
I'm sure it'll be really great. I wish you both plenty of success and look forward to seeing a longer form version of this story.
Thanks so
absolutely.
much.
Are you coming down? Are you going to be on the
I
ground?
am. I will
Okay,
be
we'll
there.
look to
Yes.
see you there.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thank you, Abe.